a really interesting time tonight. I got my book, which is Dr. Claude Anderson's book. As you guys know, we've been reading this. It is a book called The Black History Reader. Everybody can get a copy of this book at powernomics.com. So if you'd like to get a copy of Dr. Claude Anderson's books, who is he's one of the great economic thinkers of our time, just go to powernomics.com. So anyway, how's everybody doing today? Let me know if you can hear me. Give me a yes if you can hear me okay. And let me hit a couple buttons here, get us completely started here. And let's see. I'm looking to see. There we go. I see Karen Dorsey. There we go. All right. So I was looking for you guys in the chat. All right. So yeah. So this has been a really interesting week. Let me tell you. First off, do you know this is crazy? So this week I spent a lot of time talking about stuff related to Deion Sanders, and there's a lot of anger and also appreciation for what he represents, in college football. He had the setback this week, but he's one of my favorite players. I have his jersey on my wall. I don't have anybody else's jersey but his, and it's a signed jersey. So I'm super proud of that because I've always been a Cowboys fan, and I'm also a Deion Sanders fan. But anyway, as I was talking about Sanders and kind of giving my perspective on things, and of course, I say enough that I end up making everybody mad. I don't have any friends because some people think that you can only be their friend if you always agree with them. So sometimes I disagree even with my friends. And my wife happened to pop up and she said, did you forget that what your biological father's last name was? And I said, oh my God. Do you know what it is? It's Sanders. Literally it's Sanders. So I didn't even know that. I completely forgotten that I was born a Sanders. How crazy is that? And my wife said, maybe that's why you're interested in him, because she knows that I'm inspired by him, which is one of the reasons why I didn't want him to leave Jackson State. I wanted, his greatness to be at an HBCU. And I've also been a Cowboys fan, but literally my father's name, he's passed now, but his name was Boyce Sanders. So when you guys know me as Boyce Watkins, the reason you know me as Boyce Watkins is because Boyce Sanders, I never knew the guy. I was born and it was me and my mother and this white lady in the hospital, and nobody else was there. I was born on Father's Day too. How crazy is that, right? I'm born on Father's Day. I'm a pretty good Father's Day gift. And Boyce wasn't around, unfortunately. It was as I talked to you guys about what drugs have done to Black families, and how we have to really have an awareness of that, and how much that has impacted not just our mental health and our relationships, but also our wealth. It's created tremendous amounts of trauma, and if you don't directly sort of consciously try to heal from that, it's going to stick with you forever, right? So anyway, yeah, my name is Boyce Sanders, well, that's my born name, but my father, I took my real father's name, who's the guy who raised me. Because that guy invested approximately, I think I calculated, about 420,570 hours into raising me, which means that I'm going to carry his name. So my legacy becomes his legacy becomes mine. And I think it also speaks to just, I hope it's okay if I share this perspective, but it really speaks to young fathers out there to understand the importance that your role in the child's life plays and whether or not you're remembered. Like, I literally, because I had no connection to this man, I didn't even remember that his last name. I literally made no connection. My wife brought it up. She was like, yeah, well, don't forget your father's last name was Sanders. I was like, oh my God, I totally forgot. It never once crossed my mind. So when you don't pour into your children, when you don't make the most important investment that you can make, the most important investment you will make is in the young people and the people around you. Give me a yes if you understand where I'm coming from. I hope that I get up. I don't sound too weird and uppity saying this, but the biggest investment you make in your legacy and in your life is actually going to be other people. When you fail to make that investment, then it's like you come and you go and you disappear and nobody remembers you after you're dead. Right. And I don't have anything against my biological father. I think that I even have relatives from his side of the family who've been following me for years. And I don't know, maybe he followed me too. I have no idea. But literally, it wasn't even like I was mad at him and said, oh, yeah, I'm going to destroy this guy because he hurt me. No, I didn't feel that. Right. So it was like a complex sort of thing where on one hand, there is obviously the disappointment of him not, being around the way he probably should have been around. Right. But then on the other hand, I'm inspired by men like my father, the one who actually raised me, because those are the men that step in when certain men don't do their job. So and some of you are out there. Some of you, they might call you stepfathers or stepmothers or baby mamas, baby daddies, and silly stuff like that. But I just call you parents. I just call you parents. I think that we also understand that it's easy to make a baby. A lot of people can make babies. You don't have to be smart to make a baby. It doesn't take any work to make a baby. You don't have to be, do anything special. There's no commitment required to make a baby. But when you raise a baby and you invest that 20, 30, 40, 50,000, 100, or not even more than, I'm sorry, 100,000, 150,000 hours to raising that child, because there's 8,760 hours in a year. So in one decade, you've invested 88,000 hours into raising that person. You invest 5 decades, you're investing hundreds of thousands of hours into that person. And if you take that, and let's say that you do it like a wage, right? You assume that you should be paid, let's say $30 an hour. Well, then you're talking about a multi-million-dollar investment, right? Do you follow what I'm saying? Like I'm really translating this. I've never actually talked about this in this way publicly, but it's kind of, sometimes God just says, hey, bring this up tonight at the book club, and I'll bring it up. And so literally think about this. If your time is worth $30 an hour, and you put, 400,000 hours into raising another person, that's the greatest investment that you will ever make. 400,000 times 3 is about 1.2 million. Add a zero, that's $12 million. So everybody who's raised a child, that child is a $12 million investment. And then if you want to translate it into money, and if you have 4 or 5 children, then you're talking about investing tens of millions of dollars in time into other people. This is the biggest investment that you'll ever make in your life. And I want to make sure you remember that, even as we talk about economics and finance. Now, another thing that I wanted to bring up was something. I did a poll. I like to do polls. I'm a statistician, and I did a poll to see what Black people think about Joe Biden. Did anybody see where Joe Biden was up on stage at the Congressional Black Caucus calling LL Cool J a boy and stuff like that? Which, unfortunately, I think that's just his old age kind of kicking in, right? He's kind of forgetting that it's not 1952 anymore. And we know Joe Biden has a kind of a complex history in terms of race. A lot of people consider his crime bills to be very racist. And so anyway, I just did a little poll, and I wanted to see what everybody thought about this guy. And I just basically asked a simple question. I said, do you think Joe Biden's a racist? And then I asked another question that I think was really interesting, but let me start with the first one. Let's see here. I'm sharing my Twitter page. My Twitter is Dr. Boyce Watkins 1. I don't know what all this other crap is. It's coming up on the page. Let me see if I can find a way to share it efficiently here. Somehow they sneak others crap into your feed. I want to use you guys to see the feed that I put up. All right, here we go. All right, so here, that's another one I threw out there. All right, so I asked a simple question: is Joe Biden a racist? Yes or no? And 86.1% of you said yes. How many of you think he's a racist? Give me a yes or no if you think Joe Biden is a racist or not a racist. Yes or no? What do you guys think? Is he a racist or not a racist? You think I'm overreacting by even asking this question? What do you guys think? Yes or no? Okay. So then I asked another question that really helped me get to more of the heart of the issue. I'm always curious about what you guys think. And then that question about whether or not you think Coach Prime's going to win their next game is just me having fun because I'm a football fan and I hope he wins, but USC is really tough. It's going to be a tough game. All right. Anyway, let's move up. So you scroll up here. And I asked another question. I said, who is more racist, Donald Trump or Joe Biden? Right. And so I should have added a fourth option. I should have added the fourth option to say neither one of them is racist. I didn't do that, but I have Trump is more racist, Biden is more racist, and then the third option is they're the same. Now, again, so the same could mean either they're both equally racist or but it could also mean that neither one of them are racist to you, right? So what do you guys think? Who do you think is more racist between Trump and Biden? I thought this was interesting. Look at the results. 55% of you said Biden is more racist. 36% of you said they're the same. Only 7.8% of you said Trump is more racist. Isn't that funny? Now that obviously says something about the people that may follow me. People that follow me, I guess, tend to be on a slightly more conservative side. I don't cater to Trump supporters. If you know my history, I never voted for. I don't vote for the Republicans or the Democrats. I just don't. I vote for whoever I want. I don't let anybody tell me I can't do that because it's my right. But yeah, isn't that interesting that at least amongst intelligent Black people, which is what I have catered to for 14 years, among intelligent Black people, Biden is seen as the more racist party. A third of you feel like they're about the same. So I think that's really interesting in light of the perception that some have that the Democrats are the saviors of Black people. And I think that that's a good run up to the conversation. Oops. Hang on it. Hold on. Knock my mic over. Can y'all still hear me? Give me a guess. You can still hear me okay. When I knock my mic over, weird audio stuff will happen. Can y'all still hear me okay? Am I coming through all right? Okay, give me a guess. All right, thank you. All right, so yeah, so this is a really interesting kind of thing where it's sort of like trying to figure out, who are our allies, who are our friends. Now, Dr. Anderson's perspective is that Black people have no friends. That Black people, that we're just kind of on our own, and because we are, in need of a friend, we're kind of looking for love in all the wrong places. And so what I'm going to read tonight in Dr. Anderson's book, which is called The Black History Reader, you can get a copy at powernomics.com, is a section where he talks about the lack of Black leadership, the lack of authentic leadership that actually represents you. And then he also talks about, I'm gonna read the next section. He asks, can Blacks be a competitive group without group self-interest? So this is question number 8 on page 25. And he talks about self-interest. Like, are you able to, really get anything done or have any form of power politically or otherwise if you don't put yourselves first? Right. So this speaks to the Black first philosophy, why I believe it's very important for us to be okay with saying that we're Black first and not be afraid of people calling us racist or bad people because we're Black first. We get this, just so in case you want to know, we were going to have the All Black National Convention one year at a Black owned hotel in DC. And I won't say the name of the hotel. I'll just say that when we told them we were coming, they had plenty of space available. They told us, oh, we got 400,000 square feet of convention. It was a lot of space. I remember it was tens of thousands of square feet. And so we're like, okay, great. Well, we want to be at a Black owned hotel. So awesome. We're going to do it. They're like, okay, so what's your event called? We said it's called the All Black National Convention. All of a sudden, I kid you not, this is not, again, maybe I was wrong. This was just my perception in terms of what happened. Suddenly sometimes like it just seems like everything changes. The whole mood just kind of shifts, right? And like you're doing real good at the job interview, and then you show up and they find out that you're Black, and then they suddenly the position's not available anymore. That's what happened with us. Literally, right after we messaged them and said, oh yeah, the event's called the All Black National Convention, suddenly this Black owned hotel did not have any space available. They didn't. And we said, are you going to have anything available next year? They said, no, we're booked up for the next 3 years. It was something crazy like that. And again, maybe it was my imagination, maybe it was a coincidence, but I could have sworn that they had plenty of space available. And then when we told them we were the All Black National Convention, suddenly no space was available at all. So just that idea, the idea of us saying that we're Black first, we represent Blackness. We're being all Black doesn't mean we discriminate. We don't tell anybody they can't come. But this is the kind of stuff that even we deal with when we end up, kind of going out here and saying, look, we represent ourselves, we represent our people, we care about our children, we care about our community. We're going to fix this problem. We're going to clean up the mess because other people aren't doing the job. Right. That's the kind of pushback that even we get when we host our events. Now, by the way, for those of you that want to come to the convention, you can go to allblacknationalconvention.com. It's about 3 weeks away now. So we're almost there. It's going to be in Atlanta, October 20th through the 22nd. So if you want to meet in person and hang out with other B1 people, feel free to go to allblacknationalconvention.com. And also, I want to let everybody know we do have our own social media platform. As you guys know, you may know it's called Blag Enough. And right now, the URL is blagenough.com. BLAGGENUF, BLAGGENUF.com. We're going to start hosting our book club meetings inside our social media platform. We're going to move away from Zoom and Facebook and Instagram and start hosting our meetings inside the social media platform. So if you haven't applied to join Blag Enough yet, go ahead and click the link. And you got to answer questions. We're not going to let everybody in. Just make sure you make it clear, like why you're there, that you're one of us. So we're not going to let everybody in because we want this to be a space of peace, prosperity, and productivity. We don't want foolishness. We don't want craziness. We don't want ridiculousness. And so that's the only thing we have. You got to love Black people. You got to act like it, right? So anyway, if you want to join, just go to blagenough.com. You can actually get in for free, but you have to be accepted in. And then what's going to happen is in 2 weeks, we're going to start doing our book club meetings in the Blag Enough platform, okay? Okay. And also, in the one other little thing is my team actually persuaded me to rebrand it. We're actually going to change it once we in about 2 to 3 weeks. We're going to change the name from Black Enough to B1 Nation. It's going to be b1nation.us. That's going to be the URL that we're going to use, but it's not applied yet. But that's that's the direction we're going. So B1 Nation is going to be the name I'm going to refer to going forward. All right. So let me jump in and start reading Dr. Anderson's book about this. Okay, so Black leadership, right? So if you remember, we were reading the Black History Reader, powernomics.com is his website, and his 7th question that we talked about last week was, where are the Black leaders? Why don't Black people have adequate leadership, right? So you saw this week, where Joe Biden goes to the Congressional Black Caucus event and he calls LL Cool J a boy, and suddenly lots of Black people are coming out and defending him and explaining away what he did. And I think he could have called LL Cool J a cockroach, and they still would have defended him because that's their guy. In their mind, maybe they feel like they're doing the right thing. That's their only hope. That's their belief. Now, to tell you the truth, I wasn't incredibly deeply offended by what he said because I really don't enjoy the idea that my self-perception should be tied to what a Joe Biden thinks about me. I don't care what Joe Biden thinks about me. I don't care what Karen thinks about me. I don't care what the Negro naysayers think about me. I got the Negro naysayers who think that everything that we're doing is stupid and ridiculous and not going to work. It's fine. I don't care. I'm a college professor. I have confidence in my intelligence. I don't really need you to validate anything that we're trying to do. Maybe we won't succeed, but at least we're going to try. And also, if you can't come up with a better solution, if you're not doing more than us, then you have no right to speak about anything that we're doing. If you never, ever, ever take too much criticism from people who are doing less than you, because they don't understand you. They're not in your shoes. They can't even wear your shoes. Their feet are a size 6 and they're criticizing you because you're wearing a size 14. Keep on putting your shoes on, keep on marching, keep on moving forward, and don't worry about what anybody has to say. So what I would say to you is that in terms of Joe Biden's remarks about LL Cool J, I don't think that LL Cool J or anybody should be all that affected by what Joe Biden said about him, because I don't think LL Cool J wakes up wondering, gosh, am I a boy or am I a man? I think LL Cool J has known for about 40 years or more that he is a man. He's a grown man. He's a big muscular man. He's a smart man. He's a nice guy. I met him. I talked to him on the phone. Russell Simmons asked me to talk to him about something he was dealing with. And he was very intelligent. He listened to what I had to say. He actually applied it and went on some show. And I said, here's how you can handle the controversy. And he was receptive and he listened and he did exactly what I said to do. And the controversy went away and it was great. Right. So I liked him, and I think he's probably not offended by this, and neither am I. And what I really think is important, though, is that for intelligent Black people is I think you have to be really smart about where you apply your brain share. Right. I think that you have to be cautious about getting riled up over distractions versus getting riled up over significant issues that are really going to move the needle. There are some things that people say and do that will piss you off, but then there are things that people say and do that will affect your life. Right. You have to make sure you know the difference. I heard somebody say one time, he said, I got too many bills to pay to be spending all my energy worrying about stuff that ain't paying none of my bills. I get that. Anybody who is running a business, it gets that. Anybody who's heading a household gets that. Anybody who's managing kids and a spouse and a life, it gets that, right? So effectively, when it comes to Biden and his comments on LL, I'm sure there are plenty of things I think you could critique him on, but that's not the thing I care about. I don't care. He could come out and say, I realized, I thought about it, and I concluded that LL Cool J is a great man. He's a great rapper, and he's a real sexy dude, right? I don't care what he says about LL Cool J. What I'm thinking about are the elements of racism that affect our lives, the things that move the needle in our society. Give me a yes if you understand what I'm saying. I'm talking about systematic effects. The systematic effects are the things that affect you. I'm talking about the wealth disparity that affects you. I'm talking about the fact that white businesses can get millions and billions and trillions of dollars in bank loans, and you can't get that. So your businesses can't grow. They die from a lack of financial oxygen. That matters. That moves the needle. I'm talking about all the Black-owned schools that can't get funded, but they're educating kids at a super high level, while across the street there's some public school that can't even get kids to read at grade level, and they're getting $10 million, $20 million a year. That's what I'm talking about. Maybe as much as 50 million. I don't know how much the schools get, but it's a ton of money, right? So ultimately, I want to look at systems. Systems are what makes the difference. Symbolism, it's one-off situations, little comments. Who cares? Who cares? Right. So I'm not saying it's okay for Joe Biden to say what he said about LL, but that's between him and LL. I don't blame LL for not responding. I think, look, if that's what you do, then who cares what they say about you, right? You know who you are. But I really think that as a people, I think we have to be really cautious about the things that will distract us. And so I saw this as really a distraction. So anyway, let me read some of this. I'm gonna start on page 23. And here's what Dr. Anderson says about Black leadership. We're finishing question 7, where he's asking about Black leadership. He says, the years between the 1870s and 2017 have been a transition period for Black leadership. It has gone from practically no leadership during slavery to symbolic leadership in what is incorrectly labeled by some as a post-racist society. In the early 1800s, Black ministers, so I want you to remember that, ministers. I want you to think about the people that end up influencing the community. You have social media influencers now, but before you had social media influencers, you had other influencers. You had the pastors. Eventually, the pastors kind of flipped into the rappers. The rappers and the pastors do the same job. They stand in front of a crowd and they get the crowd emotionally riled up, and things come out of their mouth. They open their mouths and things come out. So when I see pastors and rappers, they're kind of the same. Not that they're all bad or that they're all good. As you know, there's a variety, right? But they kind of do the same thing. That's why when they are politicking and trying to get Black people to do certain things, they go to what I call the political bosses of the community. The political bosses are the people that are responsible for delivering Black votes, or the surrogates that are responsible for going out and getting their base or their followers or whatever, the people that believe in them, to come and show up and do a certain thing when they get to the polls. So he talks about the ministers. This has been going on since slavery. Let's see here. He says, in the early 1800s, Black ministers provided monitored leadership for free and non-free Blacks. Monitored leadership. So they were able to lead, but they were really not so much Black leaders. They were more so Negro managers. A leader is somebody who guides you to live your best life and to be totally free and to really truly do what you want to do, to think for yourself and be successful. A manager is somebody who leads you, but they're guiding you like the way you guide a sheep. They're taking you down a pathway. They're trying to get you. They're saying souls to the polls, y'all, or booties to the polls. It became from souls to the polls to booties to the polls, right? So ultimately, they're guiding you to show up and do a specific thing. Okay. So just like selling you a product, right? So these leaders were appointed by the white power structure, which also instructed the ministers in what they could and could not say. So the white power structure instructing ministers of what they could and could not say. So do you think, give me a yes or no, give me a yes or no. Do you think that when Joe Biden called LL a boy, do you think that there were Black people who were pretty much clear about what they could and could not say in response to that situation? Like, what do you think? Like, I saw MC Lyte, very nice rapper. I don't know her, never met her, but she put up a Twitter post where she goes through and lays out a list of all of Joe Biden's accomplishments for Black people. This happened right after the incident with LL. It's a picture of her and LL together. So it appeared that they were doing damage control. Like, hey, look, he's not a bad guy. We know that you're skeptical, but hey, let me come in as one of you, right? Because they didn't send, they didn't send like a white lady to do this job, right? They didn't send, I don't know, I can't even name. They didn't send Britney Spears, or what's that lady's name? The real skinny one that's made $1 billion. Taylor Swift. See, I forget their names, but they didn't send Taylor Swift to talk to the Black community, right? They sent MC Lyte, because MC Lyte has a connection to LL. She's also has a connection to us, and also she has the connection to Biden. So what do you think would have happened? Let me ask you all this. What do you think would have happened if MC Lyte had come out and said, you know what, this is a real problem, and Joe Biden and the Democrats haven't done what they were supposed to do for Black people, and it's a problem, and we need to fix that right now? What do you think? Or what if Diddy had come out? Because remember, with Diddy, this was what's really interesting with Diddy. I don't dislike Diddy at all, but I would ask him some hard questions if he were to come and talk to me. I never talked to him. Dr. Claude Anderson's talked to Diddy a few times. I've never talked to him. So he's not a bad guy, but I would ask him a few hard questions. Like, I'd say, okay, I remember you were saying that we should withhold the Black vote, and you were kind of corralling leadership of the Black community, like you were kind of taking over, right? And saying, we are willing to not vote if we don't get what we want. Y'all remember that when Diddy kind of came in and kind of bogarted to the front of the line? And this is what celebrities are able to do because they've got millions of followers. They're well respected. They're well known. So he kind of stepped in and commandeered, like he took over. He saw the horse as a runaway horse, and he jumped on the horse and said, I got it. I'm going to ride this horse, right? And then what happened was, after he commandeered the leadership, he then guides the flock, again, Negro manager protocol. he guides the flock right back to where we were before. Did anybody notice that? Anybody else pick up on that? Give me a yes or no, or give me a yes or no if you understand what I'm saying, right? I didn't, and even I was duped a little bit. Even I was like, wow, go Diddy, good for you. Being radical, you sound like Ice Cube right now. And then I realized, I said, no, that's not what Ice Cube did. Because I talked to Ice Cube extensively as he was challenging the political parties. I sat on the phone with him. He would call me after he would talk to Democratic leadership or whatever, who would call him secretly and say, thank you for doing what you're doing, because they're really controlling us in here and we can't say what you're saying, so keep doing it. That's what was going on, right? So Ice Cube, I will give him tremendous credit because he remained very consistent. I was testing him. I was kind of asking him hard questions and like, so what happens if this happens? Or how do you feel about that? Or what's going? And I'm a thinker, so I'm processing, I'm watching, and he was very consistent. I can't say that about Kanye. Kanye, it's Kanye. He's kind of all over the place. I didn't understand where he was coming from when we were talking on the phone, but Ice Cube, super consistent, ready for whatever. He was being as gangster as I've ever seen him be, and I was very impressed by that. Diddy kind of played what I thought was a little bit almost like a rope-a-dope. Again, I don't know him, so I can't say what he was trying to do, but it's one thing when you come in and you say, oh, y'all getting radical? Well, I'm radical too. Yeah, everybody follow me. And then everybody's following you because they're thinking you're taking them down the same path they were trying to go, when really you're like, okay, now that I've got control, I'm going to drive this car back to the garage. Okay. So I think that you have to be really careful about celebrities or pastors or anybody that when they come in and commandeer leadership of a movement without necessarily having the credibility to do that. Okay. So let me keep reading here. All right. So it says here that, and this is where I would disagree. I definitely disagree. Somebody mentioned Kanye and Diddy. Yeah, they're kind of opposite sides of the same kind of issue, right? Kanye is heavily Republican. I love Donald Trump. I don't agree with that. I did, we didn't really talk. I think Trump literally called him while we were on the phone, and I had nothing to say about Trump because I don't care about the guy. Diddy is on that Democrat side. So I don't know if the solutions for Black people exist within either political party. I think the solutions exist somewhere else. So I think that the only people that we can really listen to, in my view, are the people who have been able to explore what true freedom actually looks like. And that might mean, who knows, that might be somebody who is maybe a billionaire who doesn't need their money and doesn't need their access, but who's actually cares enough about the community to be able to say, let's go to the land of freedom. And here's the thing, if you're talking about solving these problems, these are not hard problems to solve, people. These are not, the Black problems are not complicated. They really start in the, when I wrote their book, It Takes a Village to Raise the Bar, A New Paradigm for Black America. And not to say I have all the solutions, I'm not, but I'm a problem solver, I'm a mathematician. And I said, it really comes down to really what I call the four pillars, which was health. What was it? Sorry, not health. I'm sorry. It was oh gosh, why am I losing my words now? Wealth, education, family, and community. Wealth, education, family, and community. If you focus all your energy on those four areas, then you're going to win, right? If you focus all your energy on making sure your children are economically prepared for the future, that they understand everything there's to know about making money and preserving wealth and controlling resources, they're going to be economically strong. That's the first step to being strong in a capitalist society. America is a country that is made of money, and money drives everything that happens in this society. Right now, your government's about to shut down, and it's all about money. And it's going to create a lot of economic turmoil, a lot of economic trauma for millions and millions of people, because many of us have been misled into depending on the government, looking for the good government job that your grandma told you to get, stuff like that. A lot of pain is going to be experienced because of this. And my heart goes out to people in that category. But again, it's like, who was guiding your train? Who was telling you which direction to apply your energy? And if I were raising you as my kid, I would have said, no, let's not do just the government job. If you do the government job, let's look at what financial security looks like. Let's do the what if analysis. Like, what if the government shuts down? What if you decide to become radical and start speaking on certain issues that you're not allowed to speak on as a government official? What if you suddenly gain a consciousness where you start to question things? Are you in a position to do that? So wealth, education. I think that any community that's full of highly educated people that really value knowledge at a high level are going to be very successful. So effectively, I think committing to education, like this basic stuff, your kids making good grades, and then you educating them after school's over, and making sure they're not just learning a lot, but they're learning the right things, making sure the kids have what my grandma used to call the 3 R's: reading, writing, and arithmetic. If you can do reading, writing, and arithmetic, if you can read, In consumer information, you can write, communicate your ideas effectively, and then you can do math, which means you can do business and count things. Then you're going to be very successful in life, typically, because that means that whatever you want to do, if you want to be a lawyer, a doctor, an engineer, an Indian chief, or whatever, a Microsoft specialist, whatever you want to, you can learn that because you got the basics, the fundamentals to help you do that. I become very discouraged and very sad when I meet young people, maybe as old as 30 years old, who can't even do basic calculations. I talked to a young lady one time and I was trying to explain to her how much of a gold mine she was sitting on because she was really good at doing hair. Like if people look down on stuff like that, I don't. That's where the money's at. That's where people spend their money. So doing hair is fine, right? And I was saying, okay, well, here's how I think you should do it, right? Open a shop, hire some people, blah, 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 blah. So here's what happened. And it scared the hell out of me. I said to her, okay, so let's say you have a partnership with somebody. And for every dollar they make, you make 10% of that money, right? So she makes $100. I said, so that means if she makes $100, it brings in 100, and you get 10% of that 100, you get how much? So I want y'all to do that math for me. How much is that? So if you have a partnership with someone where you get 10% of the money, and they make $100, how much of that $100 do you get? Answer me in the chat. I want to see how fast you guys can answer. You get 10. Right. It scared me to death because when I asked that question, she paused for a real long time. And I repeated the question. I said, okay, so if you have a partnership where you get 10% and $100 comes in, you get 10% of the $100, how much do you get? And she said, 42. And I was like, I tried not to act surprised, but I couldn't help it because I just assumed that we know 10% of $100 is $10. And when she said 42, it blew my mind because it really expressed to me how miseducated this poor child was. And this wasn't no child no more. She was almost 30. And she went to a very bad high school, one of these public schools where nobody ever taught basic stuff like 10% of 100 is 10. But it wasn't like nothing was being learned, the kids all know their favorite rapper. They know Cardi B lyrics. They know how to twerk. They know how to rap. They know how to play basketball. They know how to keep up with school gossip and everything else, right? They're thinking. They're constantly thinking. They're constantly they're playing video games. They're constantly processing information. They're constantly learning things. They can tell you all about the storyline for Love and Hip Hop. They can tell you all about the relationship between Christian Rock and Blueface, right? And the details of it, right? Like absolute details. So they're studying constantly, staring at their phone, looking at Blueface's Instagram to see if he got his other baby mama pregnant again, right? They know these things. They know the lyrics to WAP, right? But they don't know that 10% of $100 is $10. So that means you don't even have the foundation to even do business. How are you ever going to have money when you can't even do basic math, right? And I'm not making fun of her at all. And I feel even awkward even sharing the story, but I'm sharing it because this is the severity of the damage that people are doing to your children who are your most precious, most valuable asset. If somebody is coming into your family and they're finding the most valuable thing you own and they are cutting it open, peeing on top of it, and putting roaches inside of it, then they're killing your wealth, right? Really, imagine somebody coming into you got a luxury bedroom set and they come in with switchblades and they cut your bed open and they pour bed bugs into your bed and they're urinating all over the floor. They're killing your wealth right in front of you. And I use that analogy to help you understand. This is what I see in my head when I look at how much incredible damage is being done to our children when they're walking into these buildings every day, these multi-million-dollar entities called public schools, and they're walking out and somehow that kid still can't read. I need to know what happened inside that school where my child was sitting with you for 6, 7, 8 hours a day and did not learn a damn thing. What happened, right? So there's more to talk about, but I think this is important to think about. We got to think about this. And these problems are not hard to solve. You give me $1 billion, I'll open some schools. All them kids will be educated at the highest levels. If in fact, we could do a Zoom, and I could, people like me, I know educators that could get your kids in a Zoom and make sure that they're better educated than most adults by the time they're 14 years old. Like, it's easy to do. So what tells me that there's an issue here, that there's a bigger plan here, so to speak, is that you have to work really hard to miseducate people that badly. Like, you have to be extremely calculated to make sure you screw kids up that terribly. And so let me keep reading here. Let me jump back in. I'm reading Dr. Claude Anderson's book, The Black History Reader. We're on page 23. His books are at powernomics.com. So feel free to go to powernomics.com. And also, for those of you that just came in, sometimes I send out free stuff, like our $5 a day investing plan that we have in the Black Business School. And we have a training called How to Make Money Without Working. All that's free. All you have to do is pull out your phone, text the word stock to 31996. Text stock to 31996. My goal is that I hope that everybody who follows me is a stock market investor at some point. That's what I wrote my dissertation on. I'm an expert on stocks, and I can tell you that that's the number one factor that will determine if your kids are going to be wealthy or broke. Don't pour them into the struggle. Don't prepare them for strugglenomics. Get them ready now so they'll be ready to win the game, okay? So just text the word stock to 31996. You can get on the text list. It's totally free. All right, so we're talking about ministers, and Dr. Anderson explains how many of these Black leaders were appointed by the white power structure, which also instructed the ministers on what they could and could not say. After the Civil War, a few elected officials, community activists, and businessmen joined the ministers in the leadership ranks and began shaping the Black overclass. So after the Civil War, there were a few elected officials. So in addition to the ministers, and then you have the entertainers, you also have the elected officials, community activists, and businessmen who joined them because they're making money in the leadership ranks and began shaping a Black overclass. In the 1960s, Black leaders were community activists, ministers, and civil rights organizers who collectively pushed Congress to enact new voting rights laws. So they got together and said, we want to make sure Black people can vote in every election. Now, I don't have any problem with that at all. I think everyone should be allowed to vote, of course. But the bigger question becomes, what is the incentive for those who control voting rights to work so hard to get Black people to vote? Like, if I am in office, if I am holding political power, and you say, I want to do a voting rights campaign for a certain group of people, and I need you to fund it, am I going to fund it if you're not going to vote for me? Seriously. Am I going to fund it if I don't benefit? Right? The answer is no, hell no, right? Like people are going to, people, what they know is they know that people tend to dance with the person who brings them to the party. So the idea behind voting rights is very clear, right? The people that control those voting rights, their incentive to get voting rights to Black people was not, we want to get voting rights to Black people so they can do whatever they want. It's like, no. We want them to have freedom of political movement as long as they're moving in a direction that helps us. We're not going to fund and supply our adversary. We're not going to give these rights and these freedoms and this power to people who are going to use the power against us. I hope that makes sense, right? So this, I think, is the underbelly of understanding the civil rights movement, why it was even allowed to happen in the first place. It wasn't something that we kind of really forced the issue. It was something that was orchestrated. Like, people put this together. Doesn't mean it was a bad thing, right? I told you, everybody should have a right to vote. But all I'm simply saying is that I agree 100% that you should have the right to vote. I think voting rights absolutely are important. But I also believe in the deeper right for you to do whatever you want with your vote, right? If I give you something, if I give you $1, only so you can give me the $1 right back, then did I really give you $1, or am I just playing with your head? I mean, I want you to think about that. I mean, because this happens in capitalism too. You'll have companies that'll say, we're going to build a little town so workers can come work for us. And then we're going to build little stores that are company stores so that when you get your paycheck, you're going to spend that paycheck on stuff that we're selling to you right away. Right. And if I find out you're spending your paycheck on anything other than the stuff I'm selling to you, then I'm not going to supply all that to you. Right? So effectively, I think we have to really think deeply about what political freedom really looks like, what real voting rights actually look like. And I make the clear argument that, and I stand by this, I know that this is true. You don't really have voting rights if you don't feel comfortable voting for whoever you want. If you don't feel comfortable, if you don't feel freedom to vote for whoever you want, then you have no voting rights. And anybody who gives you voting rights just so they can suppress your vote and tell you who to vote for, they are not your friend. They are not your ally. They are your pimp. They are your political pimp. Just call them a double P. You my PP. You in the PP. You politically pimping me, and I'm not gonna let you do that. So what I'm saying to you is I'm not saying don't vote. I'm not saying vote Republican. I'm saying vote for whoever you want. And the fact that people get so irate when I say that, they literally have gone to the extent of lying and saying, "Oh, Dr. Boyce is telling people to go vote for Trump," and I never did that. You'll never find a video anywhere where I say, "Oh yeah, everybody, let's go vote for Trump." I don't do that stuff. I've never done that. But the fact that they get so offended when I simply say, "Just do what you want," like isn't that what freedom's supposed to be? They get offended by that. Why? Well, because they were playing a game with you in the first place. Sometimes if people give you, see, here's the thing. People don't really give you power. They can only give you the illusion of power. Why? Well, because power typically has to be taken. Power is a type of self-interest that is not going to get endorsed by anybody in the pre-existing power structure unless they're absolutely crazy or unbelievably benevolent, which does not exist in America. People don't give away power. Power has to be taken. So when they say, "Here's some power, y'all, here's some power," they're giving you something that's kind of worthless, honestly. It's the illusion of power. They don't give real power. They give the illusion of power. So effectively, it's almost like when, poor Deion Sanders in Colorado was playing against Oregon, and Oregon was beating the snot out of them, right? Beat them 42-0. Could have beat them 70-0. They just got polite. They started running the ball instead of throwing it because they knew that they could do whatever they wanted. Well, then at the end of the game, Colorado scores like 6 points. So in Oregon, because why? Because Oregon put in the scrubs. They weren't really trying to move the ball. They were like, okay, let's let these guys score a touchdown so they don't get too upset. Their feelings aren't too hurt, right? And that's kind of what you give away. It's like a football game. Teams will only give you points if they have beaten you so bad that you are absolutely not a threat to taking away the trophy that they feel belongs to them. Do you understand what I'm saying? Right? So in America, you are in a competitive situation. One thing you will learn about the history of white people is if you study that history, you will find that they built this power in America by being hyper competitive. Just watch how corporations move. Corporations right now, Amazon is being sued by the federal government for having a monopoly for what they call antitrust violations. And Google is also being sued for antitrust violations. Why are they being sued for antitrust violations or anti-competitive practices? Is because they are absolute economic bullies who will beat the snot out of you. I'm not going to cuss. They will beat the crap out of you in order to protect their dollars and to make more dollars. Google is so gangster with it that they have bought entire companies just so they can shelve the company and not have to compete with them. They say, look, we see what you're becoming. You're growing really fast. We're going to buy you and pretend like we're going to take you to the next level. We're doing a ditty on you. We're commandeering the ship so we can drive the ship off the cliff, right? That's what they're doing. They said this. Look it up. They said that Google would go buy a company. This is real stuff. Google will buy a company and they will tell the employees that you have no job. You have nothing to do on your to-do list. And they'll be like, wait a minute, but you're paying me $200,000 a year to do nothing? They say, yeah, we don't want you to do anything. Or we're going to give you a bunch of busy work to make you think you're doing something because we really just don't want you to exist. So we're buying you just so we don't have to compete with you. So effectively, to some extent, that's sort of what happens in your politics. That's sort of what happens with power in America. They give you power, just to make you think that you have power so you'll stop fighting for real power, right? If I give you the illusion of power, then you'll stop competing. You'll say, oh, okay, we're in now. We done made it, y'all. We have overcome, y'all. And then you'll stop really fighting for the real power that comes with actual ownership and control of your future and your destiny. So power is not something people give away. Power is typically something that you have to take. Freedom is not something that people give away. Freedom is something that you typically have to take. And so in general, why allow you or support you in a fight for real freedom when we can simply give you the illusion of freedom? If you have a community where critical thinking is not encouraged, where bandwagon behavior is kind of the norm, where people unfortunately are raised and they suffer with a lack of validation. So you're looking to leaders, you're looking to your Diddy's and your Joe Bidens to tell you who you are, right? Because that's why you overreact to anything a white person says about you, because you need them to tell you that you're worthy and that you mean something, right? Instead of getting that yourself. Well, then it's easy. Like, look, we're going to give you the illusion of freedom. And then you're going to say, look, we free, y'all. And then when you start to feel like you're free, then you're not going to work hard for freedom because you don't feel like you're striving for anything anymore. You feel like you have arrived. When I was in 2008, I gave a speech at a church in New York. And it was the day that President Obama had gotten inaugurated. And on that day, I would never forget this church, the choir, they were going to sing "We Shall Overcome." It was a King Day event because it was around the same time as Martin Luther King's birthday. And the choir director changed the words of the song "We Shall Overcome." He literally said, instead of singing "We shall overcome," we're going to sing "We have overcome." And I was sitting there flabbergasted. I could not believe it. I remember sitting there and I just mumbled, I just like kind of mouthed the words because I'm like, I'm not singing this crap. Because we haven't, what have we overcome? Obama overcame something. Good for him and Michelle. But what did y'all overcome? Y'all ain't over, you still black today. You were black yesterday. You're gonna be black tomorrow too. And then this nice lady came up to me and she had a big picture of Barack Obama. And I said, "That's a nice picture, ma'am." And she said, "Yeah, I just bought it." And she said, "I'm gonna take it home and put it right next to my pictures of Martin Luther King and Jesus." Right? Doesn't that sound like something that somebody's black grandma would say? Right? And I wasn't, and I'm not making fun of her because I love my grandma too. But when I saw that, it reminded me of our proclivity toward hero worship. Right, that we sort of look for that hero, that civil rights superstar, or that person that we're going to put on this pedestal, like they are some magical religious figure who's going to get us all out of this mess. And I'm just here to tell you, I don't think that's going to work at all. That's not the formula, people. That's not how you got in this mess. That's not how the oppression works against you. Your oppression is systematic. It's not one person who did it. There's not some guy called the man who made it all happen. It is a systematic code of conduct, code of behavior, codified laws that were designed to make sure that you were controlled and managed and also kept in a state of continuous lack of competitiveness, right? You're not able to compete because you don't have people around your kids that really love them, that are really training them and drilling them to be ready, right? The most ready kids that I see tend to be kids like maybe from the Nation of Islam. They have a school called the Muhammad University of Islam in Chicago. And I remember when I was talking to the kids, they were 12 years old. They were asking me the same questions that my graduate students would ask back at Syracuse. And I said, this is absolutely amazing. And what I think was really going on there is they know exactly who they are. They also are kind of built for competition. They know they were ready for war. They understand that we got to fight for this thing. We got to fight for that property. We got to fight for our families. We got to fight for our children. We got to fight to defend our women. We can't just go and throw everything into this melting pot of America and think that it's going to be okay. We've got to fight to defend territory. And honestly, I think they're going to be the most successful people out here because they just kind of understand, they kind of get it. Right. So anyway, let me keep reading here. All right. So it says here on page 23 of the book, The Black History Reader, powernomics.com is Dr. Anderson's website. It says, after the Civil War, a few elected officials, community activists, and businessmen joined the ministers in the leadership ranks and began shaping a Black overclass. In the 1960s, Black leaders were community activists, ministers, and civil rights organizers who collectively pushed Congress to enact new voting rights laws. Those laws resulted in a large number of Black elected officials who became the new overclass and began to shift to symbolic leadership from the previous Black-focused community activists, ministers, and civil rights organizations. So you had people in the Black community that were Black first. You had people that said, this is our community, these are our people, we got this, we're going to take care of this. And then they were sort of replaced this with this very weak artificial overclass that doesn't really get much done. I don't believe that every single person who's in that category understands that they were caught in this trap. I don't think that all of them wake up and say, how do I harm Black people? Like when I saw MC Light's post explaining why Joe Biden was good for Black people, I don't think MC Light was trying to be manipulative or harmful. I think that she herself has been manipulated. I think that she herself has been tricked. I think that when you are tricked into a position of powerlessness, then you get to the point where you think that the only solution for Black people is one that involves finding the least racist white person that you can align with and hope that they do their best. Hope and pray that they will eventually do whatever. So in a way, it's like she's on the bus and she says, look, the best thing we can do is get on the Biden bus. Let Mr. Biden drive the bus. This is going to be the best for you because you don't have any transportation. I'm the guy that built a little moped who said, okay, let's all y'all get on the back of this moped with me so that we can find some way to get to the finish line because we can actually own the vehicle and drive it ourselves. We don't have to get on the Biden bus. We can still get a ride without the Biden bus. But the only way that that's going to happen is if we take that time to put our energy into building a moped instead of saving all of our money to buy a bus ticket. Do you understand what I'm saying? Do you get what I'm saying? That if you put all your energy into buying the bus ticket, then the best you're gonna get is a ride on somebody else's bus. And that's what we do. We save our money up for a bus ticket and say, come on, master, I got money. Let me get on the bus with everybody else. And I'm the guy who says, no, save your money, pull your money together and buy you a bus. Or you might start with a moped, or you might start with a 10-speed bike, but at least you have something that's yours. And then when you have this vehicle, you can go wherever you want. You have a lot more freedom. When I got my moped when I was 16, I loved it because I had a ton of more freedom than I ever had waiting for somebody to give me a ride in a car. Now, of course, when my mother gave me a ride in the car, I got there faster. It was probably safer. I didn't have to deal with the weather. It was much easier. The big problem I had was that anytime I wanted to go somewhere, I had to ask for a ride. I had to wait for somebody to decide they were going to give me a ride. And if they did not show up, or they did not want to take me where I wanted to go, or they wanted to stop at the grocery store on the way, it didn't matter. I had to follow their agenda first. It was never Boyce first. It was always mama first, or daddy first, or Joey first, or somebody else first. And if nobody decided they were going to pick me up and give me a ride, then I would simply be stuck right where I was, right? But when I got that moped, let me tell you, shout out to my grandma, Felicia. That's our Panther. We named her Felicia. That's how my grandmother stayed. She ain't never going to leave me. She's always with me everywhere I go. So my grandma bought me a moped when I was 15. That was the best gift ever. Because when she gave me the moped, let me tell you about this moped. I couldn't go faster than like 35 miles an hour. Now, if you're used to riding bikes, 35 miles an hour seems really fast, like you're really rolling. But you get in the highway, you cutting traffic, people driving around you, you almost getting run over. But I'd be on the moped, and I rode my moped to my job at Wendy's. And I remember it being 5 degrees, and my fingers were I had gloves on, but the wind was hitting my gloves, so my fingers would be frozen when I got there. And it was terrible. It was absolutely crazy. And I would ride my moped all the way to my grandma's house. She lived like 50 miles away, but I would still get on my little moped because I knew that it was still going to take me 3 times longer to get there, but I knew I could go whenever I wanted. And let me tell you, once I got that taste of power, I didn't want to ride from anybody. There was a fulfillment I had with that slow little moped that I never had when I was waiting on a ride or dealing with the frustration of hoping somebody was going to be gracious enough to pick me up. And then eventually I graduated to a hoopty, and then I graduated to a better car. And now me and my wife drive luxury cars. We don't roll around in, like scrubs. Me and my wife rides nice, and so do I, right? No shame in it. No shame for those of you that like nice things. I think that's okay. You could budget and invest and still have nice stuff. But what is my point? My point is to say that you have to know the difference between riding in somebody else's vehicle versus actually having real freedom, power, and control. There is no freedom, power, and control that Black people will ever have if we're running up behind other people and following them and allowing them to decide what the agenda is going to be. And then it's even more criminal when they tell us that what the agenda is. Like, you get in the car with somebody, they tell you that you're going to the mall, and instead they take you to the strip club, or they tell you that they're driving you to your cousin's house, but really they're driving you to a Klan rally or something, right? That's just incredibly sinister. And then it's even worse when they say you have no options. Just shut up and get on the bus, and you're going to go wherever we take you, even if we lied to you, even when we told you we were going to this is what they do in politics. They tell you we're going to do this, and we're going to do this, and we're going to do this, and then they don't do it. And then you say, but wait, you broke all your promises. Like, why did you lie to me? I'm hurt again because you've done this the last 18 times I voted, and you never do what you say you're going to do. You know what they say? They say, shut up, Negro. You have no options. That's what happens. You get when you did not take the time to care enough about yourself to create options for yourself, then you will always be disrespected in this world. I don't care who you are. You will never have respect when you didn't take the time to say, I need to make sure I'm prepared just in case this person starts tripping. You send your daughter on a date, you give her money, you give her gas money in case that boy turns out to not be a gentleman and she needs she needs a ride home. You give her some money to catch a cab or catch an Uber, or you give her the phone number so she can call daddy or whatever. You give her a plan B. You don't put her in the car with somebody who's a liar and a thief and a criminal, and then say, good luck, baby. I hope it all works out for you. I hope he keeps all his promises. But that's what we do, I believe, when we line up politically and we don't have any options. We haven't spent that time learning how to create businesses and options for ourselves and alternatives. So we literally put our whole fate in the hands of people who have consistently shown that they care nothing about our fate. They care nothing about doing what's best for Black people. They'll tell you anything. They'll make every promise under the sun and then break the promise. And then just they say, oh, wait, they're going to forgive us because those people, they don't have any options anyway. In fact, they're so stuck in their way of thinking that we don't even have to force them to come back. They will force each other to come back. Right. So this is the slavery overseer thing, right? Where the overseer, the Black overseer, will beat you harder than the master will. And so so my question would be, what makes us so committed to systems and ideas that have been proven to be absolute failures? I mean, just come to Chicago. And now, they got the people from other countries being dumped into Black neighborhoods and all that. I mean, just, come to Chicago, go to Philadelphia, go to LA, go to New York, same problem, same issue everywhere. What is it about our self-esteem that is so low that we will continuously have people spit in our face, continuously watch our community decay, continuously watch our children get shot, continuously watch our kids get miseducated, continuously go through the same economic struggles over and over, and never actually at any point have the courage to say, we're getting off the bus, we're going to figure this out, we're going to do something different? I think a lot of it has to do with a lack of self-esteem, which translates to a lack of preparation. I really do. And this is me speaking as a finance guy who spent a lot of time studying things like risk management. Risk management, all that is pretty much preparing for all the things that can go wrong. Banks have to have good risk management in order for them to pass their regulations or whatever, right? To get their federal approvals. They have to show that they have thought about all the things that can go wrong and they're ready for all these possibilities. I don't think you're encouraged to do that, because I think that these civil rights movements, the civil rights superstars, have convinced you when you were young to let your guard down because you were walking into a racist battlefield thinking that you lived in a colorblind society. So that's why you go through life constantly triggered, constantly mad, constantly pissed off that they didn't keep their promise when there was nothing really in the history or in the documentation to say that they've ever kept their promises to you. And America doesn't really keep promises and commitments to weak people. They just don't. And it's not even just because you're Black. Look at how they treat the labor unions. Lord Jesus, they destroyed those unions. Now they're going on strike. Now they're fighting for their rights. I support them 100% because I think that maybe 30, 40 years ago, I want to say about one in every 2 or 3 people was in a union. 1 in every 2 or 3 workers is in a union. Now it's like 6%. They killed the union, so they're screwing these poor workers, and I applaud them for fighting for their rights. That's the only way you're going to get them, because capitalism ain't got no friends. Capitalism's only friend is money. So let me keep going. Let me keep reading here. Okay, some of you are asking about the convention. Yeah, if you want to come to the convention, it's going to be October 20th through the 22nd in Atlanta. You can go to allblacknationalconvention.com. And also, that's allblacknationalconvention.com. And also, one more reminder, everybody, our financial workbooks for kids. As you guys know, we have financial workbooks that we put together with Black experts, and they're really good. They're very effective if you want to train your kids on economics. And so we cover every grade band. We spent many, many years putting these together. And so if you want to get a discount, we do have a short-term discount. It expires tonight. I think 33% off is what Mike has set up. So if you go to boycewatkins.com, which is my website, boycewatkins.com, there's not just a lot of free stuff and low-cost stuff, but also the financial workbooks are available. And our kids, once you order them, our children will literally ship them to you. We run our business like a family business. It is a family business. And so they literally will ship it. And so feel free to go to my website if you'd like to take advantage of that. All right, so let me keep reading here. So according to Dr. Anderson on page 23 at the bottom, he talks about the Black elected officials, and he says the laws resulted in a large number of Black elected officials who became the new overclass and began to shift to symbolic leadership from the previously Black-focused community activists, ministers, and civil rights organizations. So you went from a Black first philosophy to a you might want to call this like an America first philosophy with black people at the back of the bus. That's kind of what happens like when two companies integrate with each other. When one company buys the other one, you go from having these separate identities to having a joint identity. And the problem with a joint identity is that if you don't make it clear what your rights are within that joint identity, you will typically be abused. It's like if I get married to somebody and they don't respect me, and they don't really care about being married to me, or they're using me or manipulating me, or I'm marrying a narcissist. There's no bigger narcissist than the racist in America, right? The narcissist is going to make me feel subordinated. The narcissist is going to extract more from me than they pour into me. So integration itself, in my view, was not a bad thing. It was, the problem was that our self-esteem was so low. We were so happy. We so believed that his ice was colder that we were willing to sort of accept any form of abuse that came along. And then the abuse was tripled by the fact that we gave up all of our resources, all of our freedom, all of our possibilities. So to compare it to a marriage, it's almost like I marry somebody and my self-esteem is shot. I don't have family members to back me up. I don't have any money. I quit my job just so I could be married to this other person. And then the person on top of that is a narcissist who really didn't want to marry me. They married me because they could get something from me. I'm going to be the victim of tremendous amounts of abuse. That's a formula for abuse. Okay. So anyway, let's see, Gary Chanel can answer your question about the cost of the convention. If you go to allblacknationalconvention.com, there's different ticket prices. Also, you can be a vendor or a sponsor if you'd like to sponsor or vend, and we'll promote your business on our platform. We reach a few 100,000 people. So if you got a business and you're trying to get more customers and you're doing good business, you have a good product, you can reach out, go to allblacknationalconvention.com. We can make a deal. Because we have to sponsor it that way. We don't take corporate money. We don't take government money because we don't want to end up like the Congressional Black Caucus. Joe Biden is pretty much their boss. Like if Biden could have said anything about LL or anybody, and they would have to invite him because that's where their funding comes from, right? They get the money from the corporations, they get the money from the government. And so we specifically don't take money from those entities because we want to be able to really solve our problems without all of the stress that comes with people telling you what to do. But the problem is that freedom isn't free. So things are very expensive, and we get criticized for that. Like, why are you charging money? It should be free if you care about the community. But there's nothing about helping the Black community that says you have to take a vow of poverty. That's the first thing. You don't have to be poor to help Black people. And then number two, if our people don't pay for this stuff is not cheap. It costs hundreds of thousands of dollars to do this convention. Literally talking about like almost $250,000 every year we do this. If we're not paying the bill, then who's going to pay the bill? So if I go and I say, well, Black folks, we think everything should be free, so we don't want to pay for nothing. We need McDonald's to sponsor it, and Target and Walmart and the Democratic Party. Well, then you're not going to hear the same message coming from the convention. You're not going to hear the same message coming from me. You're going to hear a corporate message. At that point, I transition from being a free, independent Black man to becoming somebody's puppet. Right? Because the money drives the message. The money drives the action. The money determines what you can and cannot do. So it's hard. It's really hard. It's incredibly hard. I cannot tell you how stressful and difficult it is to raise the money every year to do the convention. But we have requirements, and we say if the money ain't good money, we're not taking that money. I'm a finance professor. I know the difference between good money and bad money, and that's what we're sticking to. So this is one of the reasons why we offer things to you guys. If you have businesses and things like that, we will promote you, we will support you, you will get your money's worth. So we ask that if you have a business and you have a marketing budget and you want to expand, or you like my platform and you want me to shout you out and stuff like that, I'd be more than happy to do that. Okay. All right. So let's keep going here. All right. So what happened to Black leaders in a socio-political context is so critically important that it demands further elaboration, even at the risk of being repetitious. In the 1970s, government made aggressive efforts to shift focus from Blacks to fabricated classes. Civil rights activists acquiesced, and new social movements filled the vacuum, sparked by the simultaneous social impact of a massive inflow of immigrants from developing nations and the growing momentum of the women's liberation movement. The public policy of political correctness also took hold, cemented the refocus, of official attention from Blacks to women and newly created minority groups. President Richard Nixon's public policy of benign neglect. So this came from Nixon. Benign neglect. That means you neglect Black people, but you don't really tell them that you're neglecting them, was successful and caused the public and private sectors to lessen their interest in Blacks and to shift to women, minorities, and immigrant groups. So this is true to this day. Women, minorities, and immigrant groups. Black leaders in their respective organizations were successfully persuaded to abandon their own people and to take up the cause of broad and ambiguous groupings under the facade of diversity, multicultural, minorities, and people of color. Anybody heard your civil rights superstars using terms like that? Right? Well, we're doing this for minorities and people of color, and it's multicultural. We believe in diversity, blah, 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 right? And then lo and behold, nothing actually really happens in Black communities. Like nothing substantive that you can actually see, feel, and touch occurs. It's kind of crazy. But let me ask you this. Here's an example. Let me show you an example of what targeted energy looks like versus BS. I'm not going to say bullshit, but I just said it. But that's what it is. So targeted energy versus, symbolism. Okay. Did anybody notice that the government has put over $100 billion into the war in Ukraine? Did y'all know that they've literally sent over $100 billion to the Ukrainians? So they've got advanced weaponry. They've got Apache helicopters and missiles, and they're doing airstrikes and ground strikes, and they got ships and tanks and all kinds of stuff, right? Over $100 billion to Ukraine. So they've given them so much welfare that they literally have enough money to attack one of the great military superpowers of the planet. And Russia's not a joke. Russia and China have hypersonic nuclear missiles. We don't have hypersonic nuclear missiles. It should probably make you a little bit nervous. Hypersonic nuclear missiles are nuclear warheads that travel so fast that we cannot detect them on our radar. So if they aim one of those suckers at a major city, we would not be able to stop it. New York City gone, Chicago gone. They can't shoot these things down. They showed the trajectory. Wall Street Journal did a simulation. They showed our missiles do this. They do what they call a hyperbolic motion. They go way, way up, and then they come way, way down, almost like throwing a basketball in the air, and it goes up and it comes down, right? That's what our missiles do. Hypersonic missiles go straight to the target. They just stay low, under the radar, fly straight across to the target, boom, 5 times the speed of sound. So Russia's not a joke. So let me just process. I want you to understand the difference between targeted action versus BS. So they have enough, they've given enough welfare to the Ukrainians. And I'm going to get in trouble for saying this. This is one of the reasons why I'm going to start doing these trainings on our social media platforms. So make sure you go sign up at Black Enough, BLAGGENUF, BLAGGENUF.com. We're going to do it in a private setting. I know we probably got some government agents in here that are going to sign up and pretend to be B1, whatever, but it's fine. I don't let people get that close to me anyway. So whatever, you can come in and listen to if you want, because we ain't hurt nobody. We're just being honest. But yeah, so we're giving so much welfare to the Ukrainians that they can actually declare war on a major military superpower. They could not do that without $100 billion, $116 billion, I believe that's the number, of funding. That's what targeted financial support looks like. You go to Chicago. Chicago has spent, Chicago is crazy. Chicago has a deficit, I think, of like $500 million, but for whatever reason, they decide to spend $50 to $100 million taking care of people that have come over from the other side of the border, right? And they're benefiting, right? They've got all these buildings and facilities, and they did special reports where they found that there were people being paid like $200 or $300 an hour to offer services to people from these other countries, right? They were investing, tens of millions of dollars into stuff for people that didn't even live here 2 months ago. That's what targeted support looks like. Another example of targeted support. Has anybody ever heard of this thing called gentrification? Well, gentrification is something that you notice, right? Do you notice? Give me a yes or no. Give me a yes or no in the chat. How many of you notice, like how many of you can drive through a neighborhood and tell that the neighborhood has been gentrified? Can you do that? Does anybody else know how to do that? In case you don't know, I'm gonna tell you how. You look for like the Starbucks, or you see the dog park, or you see white people walking their pets through neighborhoods that used to be so gangster that black people didn't even go there. The black people were scared to go there, like you were afraid you would get shot sitting in your car, right? So that's what gentrification looks like. So think about this, right? We can go through a neighborhood. A lot of you have neighborhoods like this in your own city where you're like, man, back in the 80s, we couldn't even go there, right? We didn't even go there after school because it was too dangerous, and because there were drug dealers and killers and gangsters. And now there's like all these like white women and stuff in these really nice buildings, and it's crazy, right? And you see it, you notice the difference. So where am I with this? What I'm saying is that if they were doing targeted support to the Black community, you would go in Black communities and notice the difference. You would see a difference. So when you go to a community and you have the same politicians that are in charge of those communities decade after decade after decade after decade, and there is no difference, that means that there is no targeted effort to improve that situation or to improve that space. Because when somebody comes in and gentrifies that community, you see the billions of dollars being poured into building stuff and things, bike lanes and trails and all this other. You see it, you feel it. But I do not go to many Black communities and see and feel the transition that would be occurring if there were targeted efforts. So when somebody comes along, MC Light, I don't hate you, I like you, I just have to be honest, and you put this long list, these are all the things that Joe Biden has done for Black people, I need to be able to see it. If I can't see it, it's hard for me to believe it. It's like, okay, I feel like you're gaslighting me right now. I really do. I think you're telling me that something isn't a problem like when people tell me that Black on Black crime doesn't exist, I'm sitting there, I'm like, man, that would mean that my friend Greg Wilkins, who got shot in the head in front of his daughter by a Black man, he would be alive right now. If there was no Black on Black crime, I could call him on the phone, but I can't call, because every time I try to call him, because you tell me Black on Black crime isn't real, then he doesn't answer the phone because he's dead. Right. So again, I don't want to debate that, though. We can debate that later. But my point is to say that if I don't see it, it's hard for me to believe it's real. Because when there's targeted effort, like I can see where Ukraine is doing really well, where they're really, able to, they have state-of-the-art weapons because of the money that was targeted to them. I see where the immigrant community has like literal real shelters and real services that they can actually get. I think in Illinois, they're going to start letting people who are undocumented become like police officers, which is that's so interesting to me. I've never seen, I can't go to China and become a cop if I'm not a citizen of China. They wouldn't, I can't go to even Europe. I can't go to Denmark and become a cop and I'm not a citizen of Denmark. That's odd to me. So I'm asking, or when Black Lives Matter was collecting all that money and everybody was telling you Black Lives Matter, and then they were telling you how much money was being raised because Black lives suddenly mattered so much, and you didn't see any change in the community. You saw numbers, you saw symbolism, you saw signs, you saw news reports of how much money they were raising, but I don't know a single Black person. Give me a yes or no. Give me a yes or no if you know a single Black business owner who said that because of Black Lives Matter and all the millions of dollars they raised, we suddenly have all the funding that we need. We were able to hire 200 new employees. Give me a yes or no if you know one, just one. You ain't got to name 5 or 10. Just can you name one Black business owner who can say, my business was booming because Black Lives Matter helped me raise, $100,000 or $200,000. Or can you name one single homeowner who can say, yeah, we couldn't get a loan for a house, but because of Black Lives Matter and all the money they gave, we were able to get $400,000 to buy our first home. Can you name one person? You can't. And I want you to not just listen to what they say or what they put on the screen, but look at what you actually see. And I challenge the rappers on this a lot too. You've heard me talk about this. I said, okay, Jay-Z, love you, man. You're awesome. You're doing very well. You're a quadrillionaire or something. And your daughter can dance. Your daughter dances really good. That's really cool. But I need to know, can I go to the Marcy projects and can I see that there's an entire area where there's 10, 20,000 people that now have opportunities and jobs and factory work or whatever it is that they wouldn't have had before you became famous. Because if I can't see that, that really makes me question, like, what's all this about? What are we excited about? In a way, it reminds me of sports. Like I get real excited when the Ohio State Buckeyes win because I'm a Buckeye. That's why I went to college. I'm a football fan. And that's probably why I talk about what's going on with Coach Prime and stuff. Because I like what I love everything he's doing. I love analyzing because it's interesting. And then again, when I found out my father's real name was Sanders, that was really cool. It's like, oh wow, that's cool. I'm a Sanders too. But anyway, so it's like he's Coach Prime. Maybe I'm Dr. Prime, right? But anyway, so when the Buckeyes win, I love it. I get excited. When the Cowboys win, I get excited because I'm a Cowboys fan. But that is really just symbolism in general, right? There's nothing that changes in my life because the Ohio State Buckeyes won a championship. The only thing that changes is how I feel. I'm happy. I'm in a good mood that day, but it's really kind of an illusion, right? Because it's not going to change anything about my ability to pay my mortgage. It's not going to change how dangerous my neighborhood is. It's not going to change my physical health. There's nothing that changes. So I encourage you to really, see where the rubber meets the road, right? When they come and they tell you, look at all these things that have improved about being Black because this person was in office, I encourage you to treat it like gentrification. If I live in a neighborhood and you say they poured $100 million into this neighborhood, I'm going to be able to see it. I'm going to be able to see a difference. So if you tell me that you've done all these things for the Black community, I'm not going to ask you to just give me numbers on the chart. That doesn't mean anything. I need you to show me the difference. And it might be basic stuff. Like I think MC Light mentioned how much Biden has supported HBCUs. Okay, so show me the HBCUs that are doing extremely well. Maybe show me 10 or 20 of them that have, $100 million, $200 million added to their endowments because this guy was in office. I'll even take things like that. So we got to look for the real stuff. Like, because here's another example. Here's another example of what targeted energy looks like. Let me ask y'all. So remember, we've talked extensively about Joe Biden's history with the crime bill, right? And if you want to know, just to recap, basically he specifically targeted drugs in the urban community, and basically said, we're going to start building. We're going to put $10 billion into building as many prisons as we can. We're going to put another 100,000 cops on the street so that we can really lock people up. And he said, we want to lock them up, throw away the key. Go look it up. Go look it up. He talks about 3 strikes, and it's like baseball. 3 strikes are out. These kids, they don't have fathers, and they're predators. And I think Hillary used the term super predators, right? We know the history. Now this was targeted energy. Targeted energy. So again, the point here is I want you to see the difference between targeted and untargeted. So I want to ask you all a question to see if it works. How many of you have somebody in your family who has gone to prison since the 3 strikes bill has been implemented? How many of you have somebody in your family, a cousin, a sibling, a child, an uncle, an aunt that has gone to prison as a result? I want to see how many yeses, because remember, we did the other test earlier. We were trying to see with the business side. I said, how many of you saw somebody benefit financially from Black Lives Matter? I didn't see a single yes in the chat. Maybe there was one, but I missed it. But when I asked about the prison, notice how many yeses we come up on the chat. Notice how many yeses you see, right? So it's not like I would have to explain to you or convince you that there was a targeted effort to incarcerate millions of Black men. And I don't have to talk you into it. I don't have to do like MC Light. I don't have to put it on a chart and say, look, it's true because it's on this piece of paper. I don't have to convince you because you're like, no, I know because my cousin's still locked up. He got 45 years. Or my little brother got 28 years because he on a RICO charge because he set up a phone call with 2 drug dealers, right? Like, you see these things. So what I'm saying is my standard. And the reason I'm talking through this is because I'm really processing. Like, when I come in here, I don't already know exactly what I'm going to talk about. I'm literally thinking about this like we're just talking, like we're sitting down having coffee and having a conversation, because I'm figuring this out as we go along. I've never, ever given this as a speech anywhere else. You will never find a video where I'm talking about this exact same thing in this exact same way. I think that a good standard in general is, can we see the evidence? And can I see the evidence without you having to gaslight me and convince me that there's evidence when there is none? It's just like I don't do a lot of interviews, right? On TV shows and radio. I've done a lot of TV, a lot of radio stuff. I don't do that much of that anymore. But back in the day when I used to do interviews, people will come along and they say, hey, Dr. Boyce, we want you to come on the show. And my publicist would say, well, how many listeners do they have? And so some show would come along and say, oh, we've got 10 million listeners all around the world. And we would go back and we say, well, we've never heard of that show. And then I go do the interview and none of my friends, even knew like I was even on the show. So that tells me that they were lying. They have it on a piece of paper. We have 10 million listeners, but you were kind of BSing me, right? Right, fine. But if I went on like the Tom Joyner Morning Show or on the Wendy Williams Show, then what would happen is people would come up and say, hey, I heard you on the Wendy Williams Show, or I was on the Breakfast Club. Oh yeah, I saw you on the Breakfast Club. A lot of you in here probably got to know me for the first time when I was on the Breakfast Club. That tells me everything I need to know. I don't need the Breakfast Club to say, well, we have this many listeners and this many demographics. I would say, I know because I've seen it. I've seen the evidence. People are telling me they heard me on your show, right? So that is what I'm saying. I think that when it comes to political impact, when it comes to politicians saying, look at all the things we've done for Black people, I think all you got to do is look around you. And if you don't see any evidence of what they claim to have done for Black people, that could mean that they're BSing you or gaslighting you. Do you understand what I'm saying? I hope that this makes sense. So thank you for letting me share that point, because I think that should be the smell test. If I don't see the evidence, then stop telling me that there's evidence, because there is no evidence. Okay. All right. So let me keep reading here. Page 24. The book is The Black History Reader by Dr. Claude Anderson. If you go to powernomics.com, that's where his book is. Also, my website is boycewatkins.com. There's lots of free stuff there. Also, don't forget, join Blag Enough, our social media platform. We're getting off Facebook, YouTube, and all that stuff, because the stuff I'm talking about is a little bit too dangerous, I guess, for these platforms. They kind of give us problems. So we're moving everything over there. So make sure you go to Blag Enough, BLAGGENUF. You have to answer questions because we can't let everybody in. But once you join Blag Enough, BLAGGENUF.com, then I will you'll start getting notifications to join the book club meetings Wednesday nights through that platform. So make sure you join, so that in 2 weeks when we switch over, you'll be able to get the notifications. All right. So here, Dr. Anderson says, Black leaders in their respective organizations were successfully persuaded to abandon their own people and to take up the cause of broad and ambiguous groupings under the facades of diversity, multicultural, minorities, and people of color. Never before has any religious, gender, ethnic, or language group been required to shift their attention away from their own people. Once Black leadership was marginalized and incorporated into the system of political correctness, there was little they could do to address the needs of Black Americans. So Black people get left behind because you merge with this bigger entity. Apparently, they did not suspect that once inside, they would become irrelevant. Since they were politically separated from their own people, they had no means to pressure the power structure. No other group, European whites, Jews, Asians, Arabs, or American Indians, was expected to divorce itself intentionally from its culture and primary group. In politics, the detachment of Black elected officials gives them the latitude to promise nothing and deliver nothing to the Black electorate, which continuously votes for them as a bloc. Electing Blacks to public office, therefore, has made no measurable difference in the quality of life for Black Americans or the status quo and racial disparities. The Black electorate receives no direct relationship, tangible or measurable benefits from electing a Black person to a public office. Just like what was I just talking about? You can't see the difference. You don't see the impact. You just get the symbolism. They put it on a piece of paper and say, these are all the great things we did for you. And you're like, what? I don't feel it. I need to feel it. If I don't feel it, then it didn't happen. Let me keep going. You're getting like these placebos. They call it placebo effect, where they give you medicine and they tell you you're supposed to be healed, but really there's nothing in the pill. But because you believe that the pill works, then maybe sometimes it works, and they're hoping that the placebo will work. So I don't think that would work if they told the Ukrainians, hey, we sent you all $100 billion, or we're gonna send it, right? So we made $100 billion pledge to support you in this war, but yet you're still fighting with sticks and stones and paper plates. And they're gonna look back and say, wait a minute, we don't have these weapons. You're telling us that you're supporting us, but you're not actually doing it. So we don't actually see it, right? So that's the difference. Right, let me keep going here. Let's see. Let's see. The Black electorate receives no direct relationship, tangible or measurable benefits from electing a Black person to public office. In the 30-year time period since 1960 and 1990, the number of Black elected officials increased from 103 to over 9,000, which constitutes a 9,000% increase in the total number of Black elected officials across America. Yet, when comparing the social discomfort indicators in 1960 with the indicators in 1990, after a 9,000% increase in the number of Black elected officials, the conditions of Black Americans did not improve but worsened. Those parallels are apparent today in 2017, which suggests that there is no direct connection between Blacks electing a political candidate into public office and receiving tangible benefits from their vote, such as 1, increased employment, 2, business ownership, 3, improved housing, 4, functioning schools, 5, safe streets, 6, medical services, 7, wealth, 8, income, 9, social acceptance, or 10, political power. In none of those areas have Black people gained or advanced. So I ask you this question that's going to make people mad. What are we doing? What in the hell are we doing? What are you doing? What in the world makes you think that this is actually helping anybody? And how the hell do you stand in front of Black people acting like you done really did something good today when you ain't done nothing? The data tells you you ain't done nothing. You're like the 400-pound obese guy who says, I'm the world's fastest man, but you won't even let anybody pull out a stopwatch and really measure how fast your fat ass actually is. Like you are at 400 pounds eating a bag of potato chips, talking about you can outrun Usain Bolt, and you ain't proved nothing. You won't even get on the track or let them measure you with a stopwatch, and you get offended every time somebody says, well, if you say you're the fastest man, then show me. They won't. They just gaslight. This is what happens in abusive relationships. This is what it is. This is what it is. Actually, I think that's really interesting. That's an interesting, hold on. About to do something fun. Let's look at the signs of an abusive relationship, and let's see that if this applies to Black people and the Democratic Party. Okay. So signs of abusive relationships, they said, well, this I don't think this applies. It said physical violence. Okay, we'll let them off the hook for that. Emotional or verbal abuse, constantly belittling, name calling, humiliation, or making someone feel worthless. That can happen, especially when you say you're not going to go and do what they tell you to do at the polls. Look at how many Black people they have in high places whose job it is to simply berate Black people or Black men in particular because they don't line up and do what they're supposed to do. Control and manipulation. What do y'all think? Yes or no? Do you think that they're trying to control and manipulate us? Trying to control where your partner goes, who they see, what they wear, or how they act. This can also manifest as manipulating them with guilt or threats. What do y'all think? Yes or no? Do you think that we have an abusive relationship with the Democratic Party? Do they try to control and manipulate us? Isolation, keeping their partner away from friends, family, or other support systems. Do you feel like we're being isolated in some way? Maybe to the point where we have to be dependent on them to receive things. What do you think? I don't know. Jealousy, excessive jealousy or possessiveness, often leading to accusations of cheating without evidence. So do you think that they're possessive of us? Do you think that they sort of feel like maybe if you don't vote, then you ain't Black? What do y'all think? You think there's some possessiveness there? Financial abuse, controlling the partner's finances, not allowing them to work or taking their money. So let me ask you this. Do you think that Black people who speak up against this power structure are going to be financially attacked or financially harmed in some way or experience a financial penalty? Do you think that the Congressional Black Caucus, if their Black leadership decided that they were going to go their own way and not take orders from the Democratic Party, do you think that there would be some cut in funding, or do you think that they would get the same economic funding? Let's see, threats, threatening to harm oneself, the partner, the children, family members, or even pets. Do we get threatened? Do people get threatened when they stand up against the Democrats? Yes, they do. I saw that directly with Russell Simmons. When Russell Simmons was asking, when we worked together, we were asking the Obamas to, or Obama in particular, and Eric Holder to change their policy on incarceration. Russell was threatened. They threatened me more so through Al Sharpton. They thought that Al Sharpton had some control over me, and they found out very quickly that was not the case. But so with Russell, because he's a celebrity, they pretty much threatened to sort of block him out of the celebrity spaces. And I remember him saying specifically, he said, yeah, they think I want to come to their bullshit parties, but I don't want to do that. So I actually will always applaud him for being enough of a man to stand up to that. Let's see, blame, always blaming the partner for everything, never taking responsibility for one's actions. Blame, when they don't win, if they lose the next election, who do you think that there's going to be a slew of articles blaming maybe Black men? Or what do y'all think? Do you think that we're going to get blamed if we don't win? Or have you seen this happen before? And there's more down the list. And then we get to gaslighting. Gaslighting is making the partner doubt their reality or memory by denying things that happened or manipulating events. Do you see gaslighting in this relationship? What do you think? I mean, gaslighting, we've been talking about, the whole conversation pretty much has been about gaslighting. So there's a whole lot more in here. Intimidation, minimizing, meaning either downplaying abusive behavior, unpredictable behavior, switching rapidly between kindness and aggression, keeping the partner on edge, withholding affection. These are things like that, right? So some of these analogies apply directly, some of them don't apply as directly, but I see a lot of signs of an abusive relationship, particularly coming from the idea of simply taking someone for granted, and then also seeking to somehow make them feel badly when they consider pursuing other options because you're not doing your job, right? So effectively, that's what we're dealing with, and it's up to you to decide how you want to respond, but this is what I'm seeing. So I'm gonna read the summary here with Dr. Anderson's book. His book is called The Black History Reader. I believe everyone should read it. You can go to powernomics.com and get a copy. It says here, in summary, the white overclass response to the civil rights movement was typically slow and often symbolic. They rejected nearly everything that required a substantive change in the racial status quo. The old line civil rights organizations have failed to address the historical legacies and dilemmas of Black America. Most Blacks recognized by the general public as leaders are simply tools that the white overclass uses to keep the Black masses placated and Black neighborhoods under control. What did I say earlier? Unfortunately, Diddy, I hate saying this about you, brother, but it gave the impression that you were commandeering the ship so you could drive the ship back in the right direction. This is why I am not a fan of any of us listening to rappers for anything other than rap. You can get your music from them, but do not get your politics from them. Do not get your economics from them. Do not get anything from them, because most rappers, unfortunately, not all of them, not that they're all bad people, but many of them are simply doing jobs that they either are not qualified to do or have not earned the right to do. And so really, the next time Diddy does a vote or die campaign, I'm going to see it pretty much for what it is. It's a type of political control and manipulation that will typically lead to the same result every single time. Most Blacks recognized by the general public as leaders. Okay, we already talked about that. Symbolic Black leadership has become largely irrelevant in the struggle for Black survival and socioeconomic competitiveness. So those are two things, right? So think about those two words, survival and socioeconomic competitiveness. So maybe that is what we focus on, right? Are we doing what we need to do to survive? And are we doing what we need to do to compete? Survival and competition. Type those two words in the chat. Survival and competition. Survival and competition. So in this room, a lot of us are at different levels in the struggle. Some of us are barely hanging on. There was a lady who came to our event in LA. She told me she was homeless, and I felt really bad. I instantly, just so you know, I told her, I said, please give her money back. I do not want your money if you're homeless. So we have people in here that are in the struggle, and my heart is with you, and I want to do everything I can to be supportive of you. And also just know, in the Black Business School, we have tons of free resources. So do not think you have to pay money to hang out with us. We have to raise money to get the job done, but we do not want your money if you are really struggling like that. We will find a way to support you some other way. Okay. But then you have some that get beyond the strugglenomics. Maybe when you get a little bit older, or you have a little bit more opportunity, or you've been a little bit more disciplined in terms of getting yourself ahead of the pack. Congratulations to you. Those are the people that are seeking to be truly competitive. But really, here's the thing. You don't have to have money to be competitive. You don't have to have a lot of education to be competitive. You don't have to have a lot of privilege to be competitive. All you have to be competitive, in my view, it starts with self-esteem. It starts with you believing that you can be competitive. Because I don't care if you have all the blessings in the world. If you don't believe you can compete, then you won't be able to compete. Like, the one thing I love about Deion Sanders, for example, is I love how he tells his kids to be legendary. He tells them from an early age, like, believe you're that guy, believe you got what it takes. And I like that a lot. I think that's a great thing, right? So you are legendary already. You are capable already, because you're on code, you're committed, you're making a plan, you're thinking things through. And in fact, typically the best parents in many cases are not those parents that have a bunch of money and stuff like that. They're parents who maybe don't have as much money and resources. So they replace the money with other things that are more valuable than money, right? And a lot of you, give me a yes if you had a parent like that who didn't have a lot of money, but they gave you a lot of love, they gave you a lot of time and attention, they gave you a lot of courage, they gave you a lot of wisdom, they gave you a lot of game about how to survive in this life. Like, people like that are invaluable, right? So if you're one of those people, in fact, not only if you are one of those people, I want you to be one of those people. And that is without regard to how many stocks and bonds you own, or how much real estate you have, or how much money you got in the bank. I don't really need us just focused on those things. I need us to acknowledge how important those things are. Money matters. Wealth matters. Resources matter. I want you to eventually have those things. I need that to be part of your game plan. But there are so many ways you can win and position your kids to win without a nickel in your pocket. My grandmother, Felicia, rest her soul, she died in 2012. I'll never forget her. I'll always carry her with me till the day I die. She never made more than $22,000 a year. She never did. Never had a lot of money. She didn't have a lot of, she had an associate's degree. That was the most education she had. But she's my single greatest influence as a PhD and all these other things I've done. Because my grandmother had a certain type of code of conduct and behavior that she carried, a type of discipline, a type of strength. Like, a lot of y'all got those strong grandmas. Like, shout out to the strong grandmas out here, right? Racism sucks, right? But one thing about it is that it does make strong people, because they overcome strong things. They knew that there was nobody to sit around and feel sorry for them. They knew that they couldn't just cry it away like white women could. So they had to figure it out, right? So a lot of y'all got those strong grandmas who were able to do that. And I applaud that too, right? So my strong grandma, who didn't have a lot of money, gave me the greatest gifts on this earth, because she taught me how to not take nobody's shit. She taught me how to fight for what I wanted. She taught me how to not sit around in self-pity. She taught me how to make a plan. She taught me how to do the best I could with what I got. And most importantly, she also taught me, and perhaps this is something that sounds cynical, but she really told me from the very beginning that when you're in the white man's house, you're going to have to work twice as hard to get half as much. Right. And I don't know how many of y'all had families like that. Like I just knew that. I knew as a black man, I did not go in with some stupid illusion that somehow that racism was in the past and that everybody was going to treat me fine, kindly and fairly. That way, I never went through that shock of like, oh my God, I can't believe they're doing this to me. No, I was like, yeah, that's kind of what Grandma said. I'm ready. I'm ready, because guess what? I'm built different. I can go twice as far if I have to, but then eventually I'm going to take that pressure off, and then I'm going to go to an even better option, which means I'm not even going to try to achieve my success inside your house. I'm just going to go ahead and pay it forward and build a house of my own. Right. And I think these are the options that we have to express to our kids. I think that racial reality, I think, is extremely important. But then after that, after you give them the reality, you have to give them a plan. The plan cannot be to go through life mad at white people. That cannot be the plan, because ain't nothing about that plan ever going to help you achieve your goal. It doesn't mean you don't have a right to be mad. Doesn't mean that you're not being mistreated. Doesn't mean that they're not doing what they want to do. But sitting around and complaining about the problem is not the same as solving the problem. There's never been a math problem I've ever run into. I taught math at the University of Kentucky, so I'll tell you guys, I'm a mathematician. I never ran into a problem where I could solve that problem by sitting there crying about it and whining about it and talking about how hard it is. Like that was not acceptable. So the same thing is true here. We must solve our problems. We must figure it out. It ain't fair. It ain't right. We should have more. We're going to fight for more, but you got to do the best you can with what you got. That's all you can do. So that's all we're going to do. You know, life is not easy. It's hard. Everything's hard, but we're going to win. And I ain't come as far to lose. I'm not losing. I'm not a loser. You're not a loser. None of us are losers up in here. So keep on winning, keep on fighting, because if you fight and you keep fighting harder, then you always win. You always win. Just because you fought, just because you said, I'm not getting on my knees. I'm not letting you destroy me. That's it. I'm going to fight you until the day I die. And that's it. I'm going to grit my teeth the whole way, because I'm a winner, damn it. And I'm going to move this ball down the field no matter what it takes. So you better be scared of me, because I am a scary black man, and I take great pride in that. Yes, I am the scary black man that you are concerned about, because we coming for you. We coming for the win, period. Anyway, I'm done, guys. Let me go. My wife it was waiting for me. We're about to go running tonight, and I don't want to get fat. I need to run. I ate a candy bar today, which, you know, it's going to make me a chubby guy. So anyway, I love you and I appreciate you. Thank you guys for hanging out. Reminder, make sure you go to blaggenuf.com, BLAGGENUF. That's our social media platform. You have to answer 3 quick questions. Then we'll let you in if the questions make sense. If you're crazy or terrible or something, we can't let everybody in. The space is for those who believe in, you know, peace and productivity and prosperity for our people and love and all these other things, and family. Like, that's what we're all about. So we're going to start doing our book club meetings in Blag Enough, because as you can tell, when you're talking about race, you can't really do that on YouTube and Instagram and all that. You guys saw I had the big Instagram page that got taken down because of the book club meetings. So I have another page though. It's Dr. Boyce Finance, Dr. Boyce Finance. So you can follow me on Dr. Boyce Finance if you want. And we're just going to keep it moving, right? Another thing too, All Black National Convention happens October 20th through the 22nd in Atlanta. If you want to meet in person, you can go to allblacknationalconvention.com. We have dozens of experts together for the sole purpose of solving problems in our community. It's also a great way to network. If you're looking to meet a nice lady or a nice guy, the beauty of meeting a person in that space as either friends or partners or business partners or whatever, is that you're already pre-vetted. You know, you already know what that person's about just because you're in the same space. It's like, so I met my wife. I did not meet my wife in the club. I did not meet my wife at a game. I met my wife in the library. So here we are 30 years later. I'm a college professor. She's a college professor. Only less than 1% of the population is a college professor. And that's white people too. So what are the odds that 2 Black college professors will get together? Well, we met in the library. I wasn't a club guy, so I wasn't trying to meet my wife in the club. I met my wife in the library. So the A-B&C is kind of like that, right? You meet a good person, whether you become friends or business partners or romantic partners. If you meet them in the right place, then you know you're meeting the right kind of person. Okay. So I hope you'll consider coming out. It's going to be amazing. It's in Atlanta, Marriott Marquis. The discounted hotel rooms are about to run out. So if you want to get your hotel room at a discount, go ahead and go to allblacknationalconvention.com. You can set that up. And also, last but not least, our workbooks, our financial workbooks are on sale today. If you want to go to boycewatkins.com, there's not just a bunch of free resources there, but also you can pick up one of our financial workbooks for your kids, grandkids, niece, nephews, kids in the neighborhood, whatever the case may be. Every dollar you spend gets reinvested pretty much back into the community because we're getting this done. And also, we know that this will benefit your family. And so anyway, take care, guys. Have a good night. And so everything's on my website, boycewatkins.com. I'll see you guys soon. I'll talk to you later. Peace.